Well, there's an interesting story floating about this whole what do they call it? The Justice for J6 rally. Uh, Apparently, the media has been very worried and upset about this, and have been saying, "Oh my gosh, this is January 6th all over again, and this is going to be very bad, and we need all of these troops to mount or to mass at the Capitol to prevent." The insurrection 2.0. This is the narrative that the media is running with. And now Roger Stone and Donald Trump, as well as somewhat Glenn Beck, although I think he was just sort of echoing their sentiments, but definitely coming out full hard. Roger Stone and Donald Trump are saying this is a total psyop. This is an intelligence op. I believe Roger Stone called it agitprop, agitation and propaganda, and warning people, stay away. Don't feed into this. This is totally, like an FBI plot to try and make Trump supporters look bad. It's going to be a false flag, and they're pretty darn certain about that. Trump flat out called it a setup. And so when I heard all this, I said, gee, who must be setting this up? I'll have to look this up. Is this some kind of FBI front group? Are these people who are, obvious feds who are organizing this so-called rally? And I looked it up, and it was Matt Braynard. And I thought, well, that seems strange, because I feel like my Fed radar is pretty good, and out of all of the folks who are in, I guess you would call them the MAGA orbit, people who are, associate themselves with the movement that was birthed by the Trump campaign back in 2016. Matt Braynard's one of the more serious and, respectable people in that world, at least, in my experience. He did some very interesting work after the 2020 election, collecting data and, calling people on the phone and asking them, hey, it shows here under according to public records that you voted by mail. Did you vote by mail? And his group called people individually in a bunch of states and found, a lot of people who, according to public records, had voted by mail, who claimed they never had mailed in any ballot, they never received a ballot, but someone voted in their name. And that was a very interesting anomaly. There was a lot of interesting data that Matt Braynard collected. And so, based on that, to me, it didn't seem like something that a Fed would do. Maybe it is. But since then, he's founded his own group called Look Ahead America, which, has done some interesting stuff. Particularly, it's been the only group, really, that has been actively, bumped into something, actively trying to advocate for the people who were swept up in this, this whole January 6th debacle. And, meanwhile, for all these months, and people, including Trump, nobody has been speaking out, in defense of these people. Trump himself has completely abandoned his supporters. All those people who were arrested on January 6th, I don't know, does Trump just think they should rot in prison for the rest of their lives without trial? Because Trump hasn't said a damn thing about it. But Matt Braynard's been out there, and he's held a lot of events. This is not the first one. He's held a lot of events in support of these people. He's had a lot of people come and speak with him. And Roger Stone saying, I don't know anybody that's important that's showing up to this event. If you're a real MAGA person, you need to stay away. I don't know if this is just like a territorial thing, that they don't like Matt because I don't know if it's a personal thing, but I don't get the line of argument to where Roger Stone and Donald Trump are just calling him a Fed. Because it's not just me who finds this strange. I haven't heard their thoughts on this recently, but I know for a fact, Rich Barris and Robert Barnes, two people who I think have a pretty darn good Fed radar. They seem pretty aware of psyops and this sort of thing. They both seem to share my opinion of Matt Braynard. And, I'm not saying that as like an appeal to authority. I'm just saying that, those are two extra data points. Those are two people who, it's not just me who doesn't see, who's been fooled so far, I guess you could say, by Matt Braynard. Matt Braynard was also a guest on Tim Pool's show a few months ago, and that was a very good episode. I don't know how relevant it is these days, but I mean, to me, came across as a genuine guy. He testified before a bunch of these state committees, which were holding hearings on the election. I thought, again, in my experience, Matt Braynard seems to be a stand-up guy. I mean, I guess it's possible that the only group in this country that really has done anything to try and help the January 6th people, I guess it's possible that the whole time that only group was a CIA front group. It's possible, I guess, that there really is no one in America who cares about those people. I think that would be a sad reality, but I guess it's possible. Obviously, Trump, like I said, doesn't give a damn about him. He hasn't said a single word in their defense. He's never done anything. He hasn't lifted a finger to try and help get these people out of prison. And the only group that has, now Trump is attacking them. So, this is a strange situation, but I don't think it's that cut and dry. I think that it would be naive, or I shouldn't say naive. It would be wrong to just take what Stone and Trump are saying at face value, because it just doesn't quite add up to me. I would like to hear a little bit of evidence. And again, if Matt Braynard is so bad, if he really is just a Fed, why hasn't anyone associated with Trump or Roger Stone, any real MAGA people, as Stone said, why haven't any of them started a rival group to try and support these folks who were swept up in the January 6th debacle? Why is it only Matt Braynard? Why is it only a Fed, supposedly? There are no real, MAGA people who care about these folks. Is that really true? I say that as someone who's not a MAGA person. I say that as someone who just, genuinely feels bad for these people, who I think are being, wrongfully imprisoned without trial. They're people being held in solitary confinement, which, is considered torture in the rest of the world. These are political prisoners completely forsaken by Trump and the Republican Party. And so, yeah, I'm going to be a little sympathetic to the few people who actually are trying to stand up for them. Now, one misstep that I think that these folks have made is that they seem to have been associated with themselves a bit with John Pierce, and I think it seems pretty clear after the issues that they've had recently with him disappearing for a while and then resurfacing, that John Pierce, there's enough there to I think he's pretty confident he's a shady character. I don't want to accuse him of anything specific, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes there. So maybe the fact that they're associated with John Pierce, is something worth criticizing. But does that make them Feds? I don't know. Is John Pierce a Fed? I guess it's possible, but I don't know that. I have no evidence to suggest that. If Trump or Roger Stone have any evidence to suggest that, I would like to hear it. I mean, I would think that would be a pretty major news if it turns out that Matt Braynard and John Pierce and all these other people are just Feds. But there's one more thing worth discussing about this whole situation, and that is the media coverage. I think it's possible that when you see Trump and Stone coming out and making these statements, that this is sort of a reaction not to anything specific having to do with Matt Braynard or his group, but rather to do with the media narrative, which is there's going to be another January 6th, and it's going to be mayhem, and there's going to be an insurrection, and these people coming are insurrectionists. And so perhaps Trump and Stone are just trying to get out in front of that and saying, well, we see how the media is going to spin this when it happens, and so we might as well just condemn these people now. Regardless of whether or not these people actually do play into the media's hands and commit any acts of violence. In which case, I think that's pretty cowardly. But then again, maybe you say, hey, even if a lot of good people show up to this thing with good intentions, there could be agent provocateurs in the crowd from the Capitol Police or the FBI who are going to ensure that this crowd plays directly into the media's hand. And that's possible. If that's the case, I think it's good of them to be warning people. I think that that is the right thing to do, but you should be specific about it. Make it clear. Are you saying that all of these folks, the only folks, again, because like I keep saying, Donald Trump has not lifted a finger to help any of the folks, caught up in the January 6th debacle. He has not, given them even verbal support. Is Trump saying that all the people who do support those folks are just bad people, that they're bad folks, that nobody should support these folks? Or is he saying that on this particular date, he thinks that the FBI and the Capitol Police are going to try and set something up? I think that they should make the distinction there and make it very clear and speak directly to these people. And hey, maybe call Matt Braynard himself if you have any concerns and say, hey, I think the FBI is going to infiltrate your event and destabilize it. So that's about all I have to say about this issue. I will be watching closely now to see what actually comes of this event. So I'll see folks back here tomorrow.